Thank you, everybody, for your patience. Busy time of year down here. Chairman Green, could you say a word to open up number 47?
I'll be glad to, Mr. Chairman. Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, as we gather here today, may we be mindful of the task before us. And Father, we pray that thy blessings will be upon this group as we make the decisions for the people of Georgia. Bless us, O Lord. And Lord, be with the people of the Ukraine. Bless them, O Father, and give them the strength and courage to endure. And Lord, I just pray that things will get better for them as the people have suffered greatly. And Father, be with us now. Guide us and direct us. Forgive us of our sins and shortcomings. In thy holy name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Gerald.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead and turn your light off. Thank you. Okay, I do again apologize. Several committee meetings all at the same time. Are we all ready? Okay. Okay, I see my friend from Cartersville, or Rome, waiting very patiently. Senator Hofstetler. I believe you have a bill and we have a substitute. Go, if you could present your bill over here, sir.
Chairman, and we've got meetings
We're
too.
on now. Yes, sir.
I'm missing the Speaker's 1013 bill in my health committee right now, so
Okay.
but it happens this time of year. There was a study committee last year looking at employee retention and retirement issues, and as part of that, the administration and I know OPB, Terry England, Blake Tillery, various people kind of looked at all this together. ERS was certainly a part of that, at trying to upgrade the employees had been devastated pretty hard back in 2009, of course, back and then, and I missed those misery years, but I know at one time we were down to, I think, one day's money in the bank, so things had to be done drastically back then. And I guess because of my 6 years as vice chair of retirement and the previous 2 years I was chair, I know when I first got here, Paul Battles from Cartersville was the chairman. They picked me to present the bill. So this isn't really my bill, it's more the work of all of them. So there's several components to this bill, and I was talking to Chairman Martin before the meeting, and he was talking about some of the changes you guys had looked at, but I'll tell you what we had looked at was the forfeited leave, in that we often pay that at the end, and some guy may work here 30 years and he's working for some little department that last 6 months, year, whatever, and all that falls on that department, which seems kind of unfair. So we proposing here to pre-fund it, because for two reasons. One, it spreads it out to the departments where they actually work. Number two, it saves money, because if we pre-fund it, as your GAAP accounting would say we should do, we would
We love GAAP accounting, Mr. Chairman.
yeah, so we would be doing it the proper way, but we also would save some money, because that money can earn over investment time and contribute funds to the overall fund, and so that way also nobody gets stuck at the end. Now, this proposal is that it starts July 1st, so everything will stay as it is right now before then, but at that point it will be taken out of each department as it accrues. The second part was the making the current employees that were no longer eligible for COLAs once again eligible. Doesn't mean they would get one, but they would be eligible. Now, I understand you guys have got a bill that takes that out, and you know, that's certainly the will of the committee, and I don't think that's the most important part of the bill. And then the retirees, I know they were looking at some pre-funding in there for them to have a better option at getting a COLA this year, but that's really not part of the bill. That's in the ERS rules and everything, so that's not part of this. And the last item was the 401k, which I think is a very important tool. Currently, the 401k from the state, if an employee puts in 5%, then the state will put in 3%. And it's a good program. Fortunately, 80% of our employees are taking advantage of that, and they all should. The new rule would be that if they put in 5%, the state would put in 5%. In addition, for years after 5, it would go up 0.5% through year 13. So that if you're here 13 years and you're putting in 5%, then the state would put in 9%. And I think that's where we get a lot of bang for the buck. The total cost of this was about $31 million because not that many people are staying. I would have just guessed that it was going to be several hundred million, but I was surprised at how low the cost was on that. So that certainly ought to help, because those of you that work in investments know if you're putting 14% in the bank for decades, you're going to be a millionaire at the end. And hopefully everybody's been doing this your whole lifetime, and everybody here is a millionaire, but I won't speculate on that. That's the essence of the bill. I'll be glad to answer any questions, and I know you guys looked at taking one part of that out. I don't think that is the most important part of the bill by any means. And again, I'm presenting this on behalf of a bunch of people that looked at this over the fall and presented it for them. So, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for that, Chairman Hufstetler. I have a couple of questions, but I'm going to go first to, is that Chairman Representative Benton? You should be on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator, was there any thought given to, instead of it being a voluntary withdrawal, in other words, to force the employees to join the retirement system?
Well, I don't know that it was, and we try to force people to take a vaccine. Sometimes we get in trouble.
Well,
so.
the thing about it is teachers don't have a choice about joining teacher retirement.
Yeah.
And so I think that, and that has, if you don't force people to save, most of the time they won't save. And that's what I was looking at.
One thing we did change, and I know this because I've been on retirement a long time, is the default now is that it comes out of their check unless they say they don't want it coming out. It used to be you had to opt in. Now you have to opt out, and I think that may be why we're up to 80% now. But you know, that's certainly something that I think could be looked at.
Can you press your button? Great, thank you. Chairman Hufstetler, I just wanted to point out on line 35 in regard to the forfeited leave for retirements that became effective prior to July 1st. I just wanted to walk through a scenario to support what the position there is. So if someone worked for Department of Public Safety, let's say they were a trooper for 15 years, then they wanted to go over to be GBI for 10 years, and they had forfeited. They had an accrued leave balance at the end of 15 years. Currently, that balance would just come over, and then there would be no contribution to the pension plan based on that. What this would do under your language in Senate Bill 343 would allow for a pension contribution regularly along that 15-year track, and then that the member of the plan would be earning, would they not, along the way. And then, let's say after 15 years they left, they went to go to GBI, they would start over and start earning other pension contributions based on the other based on the other accrued leave, correct?
Correct, and I think it does two things. It takes away the unfairness of, say, the GBI having to pay for those 15 years of the state patrol, and the other thing is it pre-funds it so that it actually shows the liability when it occurs, and besides being good accounting principles, it will save the state money by having that money there as a liability occurs, not trying to scramble and grab it around years later when that same amount of money could have been invested and you know, with rates of returns certainly help the fund out.
Right, and in addition, after say 15 years at public safety and then 10 years at GBI, or at this 15 years with the state patrol and then 10 years with GBI, if under the current scenario, under the current plan, if someone were to finally make it their most recent employer would be on the hook for the entire cost of the 25 years of service, even though they weren't with that particular agency for 25 years, correct?
Correct. Everybody pays in whatever the department they work with up front.
And the third thing is, I just wanted to thank you for working with ERS in regard to the 401k plan, because I think this is, if I may, I think this is directed, it's definitely going to be in regard to more retention, but probably a better recruitment tool as well, particularly in the current job market. Because right now, if you're contributing 5%, to your point, you would get a match of 3%, and that's the max match. Going forward, not only would there be a higher match, but that higher match would increase with more years of service to the state, correct?
And every year you're getting a higher percent, and that fund's growing, and I think there would be incentive to stay versus going somewhere else where you start over in year one.
Correct. Thank you. Is there any questions from the committee? Okay. Is there anybody else that would like to speak to the bill? Okay. No, come on up, Joe. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jim, thank you for being here. If you just, Chuck, sorry, if you could, thank you for being here. If you could just state your name and so forth.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and esteemed members of the committee. I'm Chuck Friedman. I'm legislative liaison for the Georgia State Retirees Association, who advocate for active and retired state employees and TRS members. There are currently about 54,000 retired ERS members. We support, and by the way, my grandson Benjamin is here today, and I'm glad to have him here as well, observing the process. GSRA supports Senate Bill 343 as it's come from the Senate. We have long advocated for the provision which makes GSEP's retirees eligible for COLAs when and if they are awarded. It's a matter of equity. Particularly, I don't know what the amendment or substitute is going to be, but the bill that came out of the Senate also provides eligibility for COLAs for members of other legislative systems. So, as I said, GSRA has long advocated for this equitable provision, and we thank Senator Auroch for including it in the original Senate Bill 167, for Senator Huffstedler. Mr. Chairman, thank you for having it in 343. As I said, we also advocate for active employees and the provisions in 343 that greatly enhance the employer match for 401k savings is very critical for greatly improving the state's ability to attract and retain good employees. Now, speaking of COLAs, we very much appreciate the Governor and the General Assembly including funds to pre-fund them. And we've been so grateful for the remarks of many legislators that they want and intend to solve the COLA problem. We all know that it's been 14 years since ERS retirees last got a COLA. So as you might expect, that GSRA was curious as to the extent to which the combined proposed funding, which according to Chairman Coleman is $118 million in House Bill 911, and the proposed ERS formula for determining the amount of COLAs to be granted every year, what impact that would have. In particular, the extent to which they would result in meaningful COLAs, that is, an increase in the benefit that would at least enable retirees to keep pace with inflation and as provided in law, to maintain no less purchasing power in our post-retirement years. So, and we do thank Director Potvin for spending time with us and briefing us on how that formula would work. Now, I'm sure I don't have to remind you of the disastrous effects that inflation has already had on the great majority of ERS retirees who struggle, often unsuccessfully, to pay for many of life's basic needs. To that extent, you all received a message in the last several days from one of our members to the extent that he has had to struggle with a combination of factors. And it's a fight to survive day to day. Now, several weeks ago, we provided you a detailed analysis, and I have a summary for you today, which I believe is sitting in front of you, as to what impact the combined pre-funding and the ERS formula would have. Unfortunately, really unfortunately, the analysis demonstrates that the proposals are simply not adequate to meet stated legislative intent. These proposals will not solve the COLA problem. The handouts that you have, they've got graphs that compare the ERS formula to each of several other alternatives that we tested, and which would also include providing a COLA that matched inflation. And, and as you can see, the proposed formula in pre-funding is less than every other alternative. And now, the analysis shows that the pre-funded amount in ERS formula had been applied beginning in 2002, which is the last year that we had real data for. The analysis went back to 2002 to determine what the combination of the funding and the formula, what kind of COLAs would result. And of those 21 years that were considered, 10 of those years there would have been no COLA at all. 7 of those years the COLA would have been 0.25% or 0.5%. 17 out of 21 years, in the first 2 years, by the way, the pension fund was over 100% funded. So in the 19 years since that has occurred, 17 years we'd had no COLA or 0.25% or 0.5%. Now, what does that mean? To the median retiree benefit is $22,000. You know, a quarter of a percent is less than $5 a month. 0.5% is less than $10 a month. Now, in his presentation to the ERS board last month, Director Potvin said he anticipates a COLA in fiscal 23 of being 1.25%. What does 1.25% mean for the median retiree? It means $23 a month. $23 a month. Now, what is that in real terms? My grandson and I spent the part of the day before we came here over at Fernbank Science Center, a jewel of DeKalb County, which I urge all of you to visit if you haven't done so already. They have a great exhibit on medieval armor right now. $23 would get my grandson in the door. Wouldn't get me in the door. Wouldn't pay for our lunch. Wouldn't pay for the accoutrement in the store as we were leaving the museum. So that's what we're looking for a median retiree at $22,000 a year. Now, 1.25%, how does that compare to inflation? Well, up until last year, inflation's been relatively low. This month, we're hearing that in Atlanta, inflation is 10%, a whopping 10%. So the cost of living for everybody is going dramatically higher, and those who are least able to afford it are on fixed income and receiving minimal help. So our conclusion is simple and we hope persuasive. More money is needed in order to provide COLAs which do, in fact, enable ERS retirees to maintain essentially no less purchasing power. And also, and this is critically important, enable our pension fund to pay its ongoing liabilities, for which we are indebted to the board and the administration of the employees' retirement system for safeguarding all these years. Now, given that the $118 million that's presently in House Bill 911, or the $150 million that the governor said he had recommended, is barely 0.25% of the $524 million that the actuaries have said are necessary to pay for COLAs, it's not surprising that the size of the COLA, the $524 million annually is required to pay for 3% COLA. It's not surprising that barely a quarter of that will pay for barely a quarter of 3%. So we appeal to you all to please, in this year of unparalleled abundance, grants to all, large grants to all manner of worthy recipients, slashes in our ability to collect revenue in future years, but also greater inflation than in over 40 years, to find it in your hearts to provide adequate funding for COLAs, which will be adequate for ERS retirees to live with some shred of dignity. We urge you to do the right thing. And once again, as a matter of equity, leave Senate Bill 343 as it came over from the Senate unchanged. Thank you for allowing me to address you today and for your attention. And Mr. Chairman, thank you, sir, and I will yield for any questions.
Thank you, Chuck. We have one question from Chairman Chuck Martin. Chuck, you should.
I'll wait.
You wait. Okay. Thank you, Chuck, very much.
Thank you, sir.
We also have one other speaker on this, Director Potvin from ERS. Your mic should be on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm one of the folks that Senator Huffstetler referred to as somebody who worked on this bill, Senate Bill 343, for a long time. I feel like we put a lot of thought, a lot of effort, a lot of consideration into the various provisions that we included in the original proposal that went through the Senate. I will say this, though. You know, in the 10 or so years that I've been the director of ERS, you know, I think one of the hallmarks of our management of the system has been a deliberative, thoughtful process. You know, we passed an alternative investments bill, you guys may remember, in my first year here. Some of you were on the committee back then, and I promised that. I said we're only going to do these investments in a very deliberate manner, and only when they make sense. And I think our track record since then has borne that out. And there are other examples. Point is this. It appears to me that there is some sentiment out there that some of the provisions of SB 343 as they exist right now are a little bit beyond the deliberative process. And I think we're going to hear a little bit more of that in a second. I just want to say, if that's the case, then I stand ready to be a continuing part of that conversation. Sounds to me like we might have a little bit more work to do on some of those provisions, and that's fine. As Senator Huffstetler said, there's a lot of really good stuff in this bill that I think we can all agree on, and I hope we can move forward at least with that, and we'll continue the work that we have to continue beyond that. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Potvin. I want to recognize Chairman Chuck Martin.
Mr. Chairman, if you recognize me the purpose, I'd like to move passage of LC 432773S. This is the House retirement substitute to Senate Bill 343. And if I get a second, I would explain what we've done to the bill at that time. Please, Chair.
Thank you very much. Is there a second? Okay. Second. Chairman Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just as part of the explanation, what we've done in the bill is kept all the portions of the bill that Chairman Huffstetter mentioned in terms of the forfeited leave and the 401k match, and I think that's wonderful. If I can weigh in on that at a time, I think the 401k thing is nice. What we have deleted is there were 3 sections in the bill that brought in employees that were hired after 2009 into the eligibility for a COLA. That was in the ERS system, the LRS system, and the JRS system. And we've removed those sections. And the thinking for doing that was, the first gentleman that spoke made the point, is we're having trouble making the COLAs mean something. And when we put more people in that group, if you will, it makes it harder for those that have been, made the promise to prior to 09. So I respectfully think making those changes helps us make that problem. And just as anecdotal evidence, I would like to say that as General Motors was fighting bankruptcy in 2009, their average pension cost was $7 billion a year between 1993 and 2007. At one time, at the writing of the article in 2009, it was greater than 10 million. 10 billion. All of those numbers were billion. 7 billion between 93 and 2007, greater than 10 billion in 2009. General Motors never made $10 billion in a year. They wrote off $20 billion in other post-employment benefits. And so we have to be real careful of that, and with that, the explanation, I answer any questions. That's why we have taken out the putting folks back into the COLA, and instead are honoring our promise to those people prior to 09 that do have that promise.
Thank you for that, Mr. Chairman. I think we have a question. Representative Buckner, is that you? Representative Buckner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is that in the language of the original version that came over from the Senate did not require COLAs, it just it authorized them. We've had a problem with the fact that there are 3 retirement systems in the state that there is not authority to give COLAs. We are not mandated to do that. We are just authorized. And I have some real heartburn over us removing that language from the bill because I've tried to get that passed several times. I think it's important that we have that authorization in code. Secondly, if you don't mind,
please go ahead.
I'd just like to say that I've served on this committee for a very long time, and I was here when we put in GSEPs, and I will go on record again saying I was not in favor of it. And I was not in favor of it because it was passed on the premise that we would increase the salary of state workers so that it would have a better chance of being adequately funded and serving our employees. If you listened in the budget hearings, you heard over and over our turnover rate is great because our salaries are not keeping up with anything close to market standards. So we did not do what we said we were going to do. It's not a surprise that GSEPs has got problems, and I have an issue of taking the authorization for COLAs out. And I'll just leave it at that, and I don't think there's a question in that except, is that not so?
The question is,
go ahead.
You're right. It would add them to a section of the population where a COLA is allowed, but it would put them in one box. It would put them in the box with people that have been authorized to have the COLA. There's no place that you could give COLAs prior to 09 and not give them after 09. So by definition, putting more people in a box that's available to have a COLA would make the COLA mean less or be harder to give. And I would remind the gentlelady that House Bill 492 passed in 2009, and she may recall who was the sponsor of that legislation. It was the lady from Columbus, Debbie Buckner, along with John Meadows. So we passed that in 2009 when GSEPs went in, because you were getting the match into a defined benefit plan, and those people that came in after 2009 that are part of GSEPs are now getting an up to 9 to 5 match today. So I would respectfully say that we need, until the gentleman that first spoke said it had been a while since we'd given a COLA, we need to first make sure we take care of the people that have had the availability to get it before we put new people in the box and take things away from them, because it's a zero-sum game. If you put it in there and spread it further, it means less.
Can you turn off your, thank you. Okay, Representative Buckner, yes.
So it's my understanding that the language being removed removes the authorization for them to have the COLA. Is that not true? Is maybe the author of the bill or
It does remove, for those that started after 2009, they are not authorized to get a COLA. That is correct. Today, they are not authorized to get a COLA after 2009. That was what your bill did.
We gave GSEPs the opportunity to have COLAs, is what we did.
In the language now that was put in House Bill 452 in 2009. I'm doing this from memory.
We were given them
we put
that
in
opportunity.
We put in 2009 that if you came to work here after 2009, you would not be eligible for a COLA. This bill originally had language that would have effectively rescinded that. You would not have been eligible for back COLAs between 2009, but after this date, you would once again and in the future become eligible. And if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, Ms. Travis, I believe that's what the language had said. Is that not correct?
Thank you.
You press your button there, Blake.
All right.
Okay.
Not 100% that I followed the exact question, but when GSEPs was created, I believe either at that time or 2 years after, they limited the COLAs so that new entrants to the systems, both ERS, GSEPs, JRS, and LRS, were not eligible to receive any cost of living adjustment if you were a new employee after July 1, 2009. The bill that passed the Senate for this particular measure would have removed those prohibitions, which would have allowed the board at their discretion to provide a COLA to those individuals who had joined up after July 1, 2009. The measure at this point, LC 432373S, removed those sections, so the status quo would remain in that those who joined after July 1, 2009 are ineligible to receive COLAs.
Thank you for that, Blake. Legislative Council. Representative Buckner, I see you. It looks like you have a question right on the tip of your tongue. I'm happy to recognize you if you need.
It's not a question. It's just because it's hard and people keep coming to us.
If you,
Oh, sorry.
okay, go.
Just because it's hard and people keep coming and saying we want a COLA and we feel like we deserve one and we don't want to hear that anymore, I don't want to take it out of a bill that we're authorized to give them one when we can afford it. It's kind of hard this year of all years to say that we're going to fear that the state's going bankrupt and we won't ever be able to give a COLA and take it out of a bill. I just have heartburn over that really bad, and I know how hard state employees work because I was one.
Yes.
And I know that the pay is not great, and I know that the benefits have always been the main thing that people work at the state for besides the wonderful people that are here. I don't feel comfortable taking out the opportunity for them to have a COLA. I do not feel comfortable mandating it.
I understand. Last comment from Chuck, from Chairman Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to be clear, In 2009, the language that passed read, notwithstanding other provision in this code section, no member who becomes a member of this retirement system on or after July 1st, 2009 shall be entitled to receive any post-benefit adjustment. So my point to the gentlelady is, she's right. We have people coming in asking us for COLAs that have been able to get them. The folks that came after 2009 came in eyes wide open. They knew the deal was, and to put them on the same level as people that have been working here and been eligible until we can make good on those promises seems to be getting, if you will, the cart ahead of the horse. And with that, if there's no further questions, I'd call for the question.
Absolutely. We have a move and a second. Appreciate the commentary. All in favor of passage of Senate Bill 343? We're working on, again, one last time, LC 432373S. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Bill passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Oh, I'm sorry, one. I did not hear it. I apologize. Senator, thank you for being here. Apologies for my tardiness. Okay, we have one more bill being called up. Representative Cantrell, if you could come up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Would you like for me to proceed?
Please, go ahead.
All right, committee members, I bring you House Bill 824. The LC number is 432313S. This bill addresses a problem that we have. We've overfunded the LRS for the last 20 years because the contribution has been tied to percentage of our salaries, but we've had a fixed benefit. What this bill essentially does is it changes it to a fixed contribution with a fixed benefit that's a little more in line with how the fund has grown over the last 20 years. We're still going to be overfunding the fund, but not at the same rate as we have been over the last 20 years. I'm happy to get into the details of this if you want to. Sarah's passing out a memo that details the actual numbers. If you guys want to dig into those details, I'm happy to do so. But that's basically what the bill does.
Thank you for that, Chairman Cantrell. While Sarah is passing that out, just wanted to reiterate, this is a plan that we legislators fund 100%. There is a state match, but there's no additional state funds after that employee match.
That's correct.
And the benefit goes from $36 per month, $36 a month for every year of service. So if you've served 10 years, you get a monthly benefit of $360 upon retirement. That $36 is going to $50, and as a result, the amount of the funded or the financial condition of the plan right now, we're probably 130% funded.
Correct. That's about 128, I think, to be exact.
Okay, 128. And under this plan, with no additional state funds like we put into TRS and so forth and other funds, we would go from about 128% to 122%.
123
funded.
is what I was told.
So we'll still be well funded.
Oh, yeah.
I think the overall disparity, I think you and I have talked about this, Representative Cantrell, is we put forth a percentage of our salary into the plan, but yet we get a fixed dollar amount. So over time, that dollar amount has not been high enough to maintain the plan at 100%. And the second thing is if our base increases, our contribution in dollars goes up, but yet by statute, we're limited to to $36 a month. Is that so far correct?
Correct, and our base is going up next year. And so if we didn't do anything, we would pay $158 a month. And what this bill does is it takes us to $165 a month, but it locks us in at a fixed rate with a fixed benefit.
And to further that point, if we continue paying the same percentage on a higher base, we're going to be paying more into a plan that is already well overfunded, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Chairman Martin?
Just wanted to make clear that in the eligibility for the COLAs that we removed in Senate bill was also affecting our plan, and we, to be equal to JRS and ERS, we also took that language out of the LRS plan. So, and we are well overfunded, but we still thought it would be the right thing to do because people come in eyes wide open. They knew no post-employment adjustment after 2009.
Okay. Any further questions for the author? Representative Bitton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To the author of the bill, did y'all look at any of a not prepay, but a buy-in for those people that are going to be making the large salaries? In other words, they could come in and serve 2 years and come out with a pretty hefty retirement.
No, we did not consider that.
I understand you vested, but if you're in there two years as speaker or any other thing, then won't you be eligible for the higher amount?
Not to my knowledge. I think you got to be 8 years.
But if he's already been there,
Maybe Representative Martin could speak to
if
that.
he's already been
Representative
there-
Benton, I think.
He's already been in,
Chairman-
yes.
Yeah, Chairman Benton, I mean, Representative Benton, I think Chairman Martin could answer that. Representative Martin?
Yes, to the gentleman's question, he's correct that it would be possible that you paid in for a shorter number of time and you would actually get the benefit for someone that was leaving after this session, that would get the benefit of going to 36 for 50 and having only paid in the higher amount for a few dollars. The reason there wasn't a thought about the buy-in is really you've kind of done that because we're $9 million overfunded. We've
Right.
all paid more in. There has not been a state contribution to this plan other than the employee match since at least 2000. So for the last 20
Right.
years, this is completely funded by the employees, by the legislative members. So to the gentleman's question, I think everyone has sort of bought in with their overpayments into the plan in the past.
All right. Thank you, Chairman Martin. Any further questions for the author? Thank you, Representative Cantrell. I just want to say to my friend Wes, I just appreciate you tackling this issue. This is not an easy issue,
No, it's
and
not.
it's got a lot of intricacies, which in my background I can appreciate. And it's there's always a proposed change. There's always potential for conflict here, but
Right.
you've really managed this issue well, and I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We have one more question. If you could stay there for just a moment, Representative Cantrell. Number 48, Representative Bentley, the Peach Queen.
Yes, Strawberry Queen.
Strawberry Queen. And my family's from Reynolds, Georgia. What am I thinking? Strawberry Queen.
I know it's Monday, but thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Cantrell, thank you for your work on this bill, but my question is, does this bill have when does it actually go into effect? If
Okay.
it passes out the chambers this year and the governor's, when it would officially go into effect?
July 1 is when it would officially go into effect, but it would affect anyone back to January 1 of this year.
Gotcha.
If you're participating in the program as of January 1, then you would be eligible for this change, but it would not go into effect until July 1.
So just to be perfectly clear, if you're a legislator, this would, as far as the higher contribution rates, would go into effect July 1st. So we'd see it in our July checks. The higher benefit amounts would also start July 1st. Am I correct so far?
My understanding is that the higher benefit effect would be effective immediately. Well,
Okay.
I guess Yeah, but as long as you're serving January 1 on.
As
I
long
hear-
as-
I-
yes.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Yes, sir. It would not actually be in effect till July 1st.
Right. Representative Bentley, is that, is,
Yes, sir. I just want to make certain that, you know, it wouldn't be 2 years down the road before it actually goes into
No,
effect. Yeah,
no.
so this year's good. That's what I just want to be clear on. So thank you.
thank you very much for that. Representative LaRicchia.
At the proper time, I would make a motion.
All right. Representative Cantrell, thank you for presenting the bill. Is there any other, I'll recognize you in just a moment for a motion. Is there any other questions from the committee? Representative LaRicchia, I think you have a motion.
I move do pass.
I have a move to pass. Is there? That was quick from Patty. I got a move to pass. I got a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of, just want to be clear that what we're working on, HB 824 LC 432313S. I have a move to pass from Representative LaRicchia, a second from Representative Bentley. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Any opposed on Zoom? Motion passes unanimously. I appreciate the committee's indulgence.
I was a no. Representative Tarvin was a no.
Tarvin is a no. Got it?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Anybody else on Zoom?
Wilkerson, yes.
Wilkerson, yes. Motion passes with one dissenting vote. Thank you very much, everyone. We're adjourned. Of course.